Glory be to the triune God. Beloved ones, we were dealing with the incidents happened between Jesus and Pilate, which is narrated in St. John's Gospel, chapter 18, verses 28 through chapter 19, verses 16. We have dealt with the personality of the high priest in the last session. Now we turn to the second personality we see in the incident, which is Pilate. Throughout the trial, Pilate's conduct is well nigh incomprehensible. He is abundantly clear. It could not be clearer that Pilate knew that the charges of the Jews were a series of lies, that he knew that Jesus was completely innocent, that he was deeply impressed with him, and that he did not wish to condemn him to death, and yet he did. First, he tried to refuse to deal with the case. Then he tried to release Jesus on the grounds that at the Passover a criminal was always released. Then he tried to compromise by scourging Jesus. Then he made a last appeal, but he refused all through to put his foot down and tell the Jews that he would have nothing to do with their evil machinations. We will never even begin to understand Pilate unless we understand his history, which is set out for us partly in the writings of Josephus, the historian, and partly in the writings of Philo. To understand the part that Pilate played in this incident, we must go back a long way. To begin with, what was a Roman governor doing in Judea at all? In BC 4, Herod the Great died. We know he had been the king of the whole Palestine. For all his faults, he was in many ways a good king and had been very friendly with the Romans. In his will, he divided up his kingdom between three of his sons, that is, Antipas, Philip, and Archelaus. And the Romans approved this distribution of the kingdom and ratified it. Antipas and Philip governed quietly and well, but Archelaus, who was in charge of Idumea, Judea, and Samaria, governed with such extortion and tyranny that the Jews themselves requested the Romans to remove him and to appoint a governor. It was a procurator that Augustus appointed to control the affairs of Palestine, and the first one to took over in AD 6 was the predator of Pilate. Pilate took over in AD 26 and remained in office until AD 35. Palestine was a province bristling with problems, one which required a firm and a strong and a wise hand. We do not know Pilate's previous history, but we do know that he must have had that reputation of being a good administrator, or he would never have been given the responsible position of governing Palestine. But as governor, Pilate was a failure. Three famous or rather infamous incidents marked his career. The first occurred on his first visit to Jerusalem. Jerusalem was not the capital of the province, its headquarters were at Caesarea, but the procurator paid many visits to Jerusalem, and when he did, he stayed in the old palace of Herods in the west part of the city. When he came to Jerusalem, he always came with a detachment of soldiers. The soldiers had their standards, and on the top of the standard there was a little bust in metal of the reigning emperor. The emperor was regarded as a god, and to the Jew, that little bust on the standards was a graven image. All previous Roman governors, in deference to the religious scruples of the Jews, had removed that image before they entered the city. Pilate refused to do so. Jews besought him to do so, but Pilate was adamant he would not pander to the superstitions of the Jews. He went back to Caesarea. The Jews followed him. They dogged his footsteps for 5 days. They were humble but determined in their request. Finally, he told them to meet him in the amphitheater. He surrounded them with armed soldiers, informed them that if they did not stop their request, they would be killed there and then. The Jews bared their necks and bade the soldiers strike. Not even Pilate could massacre defenseless men like that. He was beaten and compelled to agree that the images should thereafter be removed from the standards. That was how Pilate began, and it was a bad beginning. The second incident was that Jerusalem water supply was very inadequate. Pilate determined to build a new aqueduct. And what he did was, in order to make money for that, he raided the temple treasury, which contained millions. Most likely, he didn't actually take money from the temple service, which is deposited for sacrifices. More likely, he took money from which was entitled Korban, which came from sources which made it impossible to use for sacred purposes. His aqueduct was much needed. It was a worthy and a great undertaking. And the water supply would even be of great benefit for the temple, which needed much cleansing with its continual sacrifices. But the people resented it. They rioted and they surged through the streets. Pilate mingled his soldiers with them in plain clothes with concealed weapons. At a given signal, they attacked the mob, and many a Jew was clubbed or stabbed to death. Once again, Pilate was unpopular, and he was rendered liable to be reported to the emperor. And the third incident turned out even worse for Pilate. As we have seen, when he was in Jerusalem, he stayed in the ancient palace of the Herods. He had certain shields made, and on them he had inscribed the name of Tiberius the emperor. These shields were what is known as votive shields. They were devoted to the honor and the memory of the emperor. Now, the emperor was regarded as a god. So, here was the name of a strange god inscribed and displayed for reverence in the holy city. The people were enraged. The greatest men, even his closest supporters, besought Pilate to remove them. He refused. The Jews reported the matter to Tiberius, the emperor, and he ordered Pilate to remove them. This last incident happened after Jesus had been crucified, that is in the year AD 35. There was a revolt in Samaria. It was not very serious, but Pilate crushed it with sadistic ferocity. The Samaritans had always been regarded as loyal citizens of Rome, and the legate of Syria intervened. Tiberius, the emperor, ordered Pilate back to Rome. When he was on the way, Tiberius died. So far as we know, Pilate never came to judgment, and from that moment, he vanishes from written history. But there are other traditions which narrates the very sad plight of Pilate towards the end of his life. It is clear why Pilate acted as he did. The Jews blackmailed him into crucifying Jesus. They said, "If you let this man go, you are not Caesar's friend." This was in effect, "Your record is not too good. You were reported once before. If you do not give us our way, we will report you again to the emperor, and you will be dismissed. On that day in Jerusalem, Pilate's past rose up and haunted him. He was blackmailed into assenting to the death of Christ because his previous mistakes had made it impossible for him both to defy the Jews and to keep his post. Somehow, one cannot help being sorry for Pilate. He wanted to do the right thing, but he had not had the courage to defy the Jews and do it. He crucified Jesus in order to keep his job. We have seen Pilate's history. Let us now look at his conduct during his trial of Jesus. Pilate began by trying to put the responsibility on to someone else. He said to the Jews, "You take this man and judge him according to your laws." He tried to evade the responsibility of dealing with Jesus, but that is precisely not what no one can do. No one can deal with Jesus for us. We must deal with him ourselves. Pilate went on to find a way of escape from the entanglement in which he found him. He tried to use the custom of releasing a prisoner at the Passover in order to engineer the release of Jesus. He tried to evade dealing directly with Jesus himself. But again, that is precisely what no one can do. There is no escape from a personal decision in regard to Jesus. We must ourselves decide what we will do with him, accept him or reject him. Again, Pilate went on to see what compromise could do. He ordered Jesus to be scourged and mocked. We know scourging was a severe punishment using a whip that had bits of bone or metal embedded at the tips. Pilate does all this in hope of moderating the wrath of his chief priests so he does not have to execute a man he knows to be innocent. He felt that he must avoid having to give the verdict of the cross by giving the verdict of scourging. Once again, that is what no man can do. No man can compromise with Jesus. No man can serve two masters. We are either for Jesus or against him. Again, Pilate went on to try what appeal could do. He let Jesus out broken by the scourging and showed him to the people. He asked them, "Shall I crucify your king?" He tried to swing the balance by this appeal to emotion and to pity, but no man can hope that appeal to others can take the place of his own personal decision, and it was Pilate's place to make his own decision. In the end, Pilate admitted defeat. He abandoned Jesus to the mob because he had not the courage to take the right decision and to do the right thing. But at the heart of Pilate was a wistful longing. When Jesus said that he had come to witness to the truth, Pilate's answer was, "What is truth?" Pilate, by this world's standard, was a successful man. He had come almost to the top of the Roman civil service. He was a governor general of a Roman province, but there was something missing. Here, in the presence of this simple, disturbing, hated Galilean, Pilate felt that for him the truth was still a mystery, and that now he had got himself into a situation where there was no chance to learn it. Pilate was like that. Into his life there came Jesus, and suddenly he saw what he had missed. That day, he might have found all that he had missed, but he had not the courage to defy the world in spite of his past and to take his stand with Christ and a future which was glorious. With this note, we end today's session. We will continue with verses chapter 19, verse 17 onwards in the next session. May God bless you all.